I was born in Tel Aviv, 11/6/1939. And we lived in Yonah Navi 46. And my father was a doctor, my mother was a dancer, and we had 2 rooms and 4 children. And my father worked every afternoon at home. During the morning he was the head of a department in Ichilov Hospital. And so it meant that me and my 3 brothers slept in the same room until I was 17. And we were very happy. We had a lot of music in the house. We went to the beach every day. My mother was a great swimmer. It's a great picture, huh?
So who took that picture?
My father, he was always with the camera. Always.
Really?
Wherever. Always with the camera. He was a good photographer.
Better than you?
Mr. Do I know? I think he was excellent. We didn't think of him as a photographer, but he always photographed, so...
As a hobby.
Yes, as a hobby.
He never did it professionally.
No, he did medicine professionally. And painting, he did paint afterward, late in life. He
Really?
made a lot of, yes.
Where's his work?
Some paint at
In
home.
Israel?
Yeah.
Not here.
Some of it is here. I have some of his painting. Your mother has some of it as well.
Really?
And
Hans.
yeah,
I love the name Hans.
yeah.
You don't find anyone called Hans anymore.
And he spoke 7 languages, but fluently, with the accent. He was the best friend of the mayor of Jaffa. He spoke Arabic, etc. He said, "We'll throw you to the sea, but Dr. Weiser, your flat will still be there."
What was his first language? German?
German, yeah. But he found it very easy to learn languages. He lectured and everything. He lectured, he was a sport injury during the army, the 6-day war. Not 6-day war, the Independence War. He had all the people with no legs.
But he didn't fight in the army, he was like the doctor?
He was a doctor. And I did my homework in the bathroom, not in the bath itself, but there was a table in the bathroom where I did my work, and I also helped my father with his patients because my mother's Hebrew was not amazing. And I remember our childhood as a very happy childhood. Of course, I was born during the World War. Unfortunately, now there still was. And we didn't feel the war very much in Israel, but I remember my mother whispering to one of her friends about things that happened in Germany. My mother came to Israel in 1936. She was from Frankfurt am Main. My father was from Leipzig. He studied medicine in Leipzig, but he was from Polish parents. And there were 5 children. The father was gone to the army, and the mother had to work for the 5 children. She made sure that they all studied music, and they all played music together, and they also sang together. So my father was the only one who went to learn medicine because they had only money for 1 person. And so this is a bit of the background, but he had a lot of Polish family, and some of them didn't have enough time to leave for Israel. He himself left for Israel in 1932.
Why?
Because he studied in Leipzig, and at that time, in 1932, there were already signs, and so he and his mother and his brothers and sister all went to Israel. They were in Kibbutz Na'an, most of them, and the other part of the family was in Bet Yitzchak, Tivon. not Tifon, but Yitzchak, I think. So the younger brother went to the brigade, but my father was a doctor in Kibbutz Nan, but he was a doctor of the Arab village, and as he spoke Arabic fluently, he once heard two patients saying, "Let's kill Dr. Weiser," because he made the wrong diagnosis. And that was the end of him being a doctor in that village. So he went to Israel, and my mother was dancing, performing a dance in at Tehillah, wrestler, whatever, at another dancer, which she was teaching dancing. And my father saw her and fell in love with her, and they got married in Israel.
Ah, where was
Because he wouldn't see. She was from Frankfurt, the aristocracy, and he was from Leipzig, so he would never have met her. And they got married in Rehovot, a very, very simple wedding. At that time, weddings were very simple. And yes, I mean, my mother was crazy about the beach. She was swimming every day in the sea, and we were in the sea. We went to the beach every day. So of course, because
which beach is it?
Beach of Tel Aviv. It's near Gordon, the Gordon Beach they call it now. At that time they called it the Willie Beach because he's the one who everybody hired the chairs from them. So we had a lovely life because every day we were on the beach because there was not enough space in the flat. And actually, while we were in the beach, of course, I have a Palestinian passport of the Mandat, and we saw a lot of British soldiers on the beach, being a bit drunk, and also we saw the boats wanting to come from Germany, etc., wanting to land in Israel, but they didn't allow them. The British didn't allow them, so they had to go to Cyprus. So we were all aware of this while we were on the beach. And
were they talking about it in Israel at the time?
I don't know if they were.
On the boat?
I don't know if they were talking. I know we saw it, So we saw boats, and they were diverted to Cyprus. So. We were a very sporty family, of course. We walked everywhere, and my father made sure that I was swimming and being in competitions all the time. And we had a very simple life, but we were quite happy with what we had. And there was hardly anyone who had 4 children in Tel Aviv, because they all had little flats. So, we were one of the only ones who had 4 children. But we managed very well because my father was very strict. And we all slept at night, it was a big room, and we all slept. But the only thing we didn't like, we had to carry the beds every morning, every evening, and made a chair out of the beds in the veranda. So that's one part. And I never minded doing my homework in the bathroom, not in the bath, but in the bathroom. And I remember one teacher came because my brother apparently did homework before me, which nobody knew, and one of his copybook was in the bath, and she didn't believe it. People do homework in the bathroom. So
where did you study? Where did you go to school?
I studied in Bet Chinuch. Geula Ben-Gurion's daughter was my teacher, and I was the youngest in the class because at the age of 5 I went already to school, because at that time they thought I was bright. And when Geula Ben-Gurion asked me what I did in the holiday, I started saying, in Sunday in the morning I went to the beach, in the afternoon I went to the beach. Monday in the morning I went to the beach, in the afternoon. By Wednesday the whole class was absolutely laughing. And my mother asked me, why don't you tell them other things? She said, why should they know? And of course, later on in the army, I was in the intelligence because I didn't tell things, So, yes, we had a lovely time in Bet Chinuch. We danced a lot. We performed a lot. We had a teacher who hardly made us study, just enjoying life very much. And then when I was 11, I went to another school called Tel Nodo, which was very strict. We had to stand up before teacher. And then I went to Geula High School, which was a very good high school, which was very near to our house, to our flat. And but you see, at that time, nobody felt rich or poor. we all sort of lived in a way that we're quite happy with what we had. Actually, people were quite happy. Oh, we felt we were happy with what we had. We had the sea, we had the sun, we had the music, and, things were good. So, apart from, of course, the Independence Day, I remember it well because I was dancing in Allenby Street in a circle. We were dancing hora. So in 1948, Israel became independent. We were all dancing in Allenby Street, and Ben Gurion or Begin, I don't know, were talking from the loudspeaker for Mughrabi. And the day later, there was a few bullets came to our veranda from Hassan Bek, and the war started. And of course, I remember we didn't go to school for about 8 months.
What was Hassan Bek?
Hassan Bek, it was a mosque called Hassan Bek from Jaffa. Now, my father was a very good friend of the mayor of Jaffa. And the mayor of Jaffa said, Dr. Weiser, we like you very much, so we'll keep your house, but all the Jews will be thrown to the sea. So that was the situation. And so, of course, we didn't study for 9 months. And I remember that war was not a very nice. We didn't get out of the house, out of the flat, apart from to the garden, of course. It was a long war. It was a long war. It was quite a few months.
So what did you do?
I don't remember much what I did. I collected stamps with another boy from one of the other flats, and we played downstairs. And I don't have recollection of exactly what I did. We didn't even go much to the beach, of course. So.
And they didn't evacuate you out of Tel Aviv?
No, nobody was evacuated from Tel Aviv. We were all staying there, of course. I mean, we didn't even know whether we'll succeed in the war or not. Where should we evacuate? To the sea? No. So.
Was your dad recruited, or
my father was the head of a hospital in Jaffa of soldiers who had problems with the legs, who lost their legs and arms. He was the head of the hospital there, and I remember going to the hospital and seeing all those people. And yes, it was a long war. But at the end, big surprises. They won the war, and as a girl who was probably 9 years old, I didn't know too much. I know only that we won the war and that I went to school after that. And
how was school after that?
Was fine, was the same, was okay.
Were you not?
I mean, we were not, we didn't have many bombs we didn't have to go to shelter very often. So.
Where was the shelter in Tel Aviv?
The shelter was, in our house, in the house, there were many, many flats, and we just went together downstairs.
Downstairs to
not down, but sort of down. But I don't remember many bombs and many harrowing sort of experiences during the war, apart from being home and being,
So you think you didn't feel it so much in Tel Aviv?
No, definitely. Maybe in Jerusalem I felt it much more, obviously. Yeah. Well, my mother was a very beautiful woman, and she didn't think she was beautiful, but she was. And very hard-working, because she had to look after all of us, but she was crazy about going to the sea. And she and my father were great love. You could see there was a big love between themselves. And whenever we went to the beach, when she came back, she said Daniella was a bad girl. Every time she said Daniella was a bad girl. And my father pretended to hit me, but he never hit me.
Why were you bad? What did you do? I
don't know. I don't think that I was so bad as she decided that my father should do something. Because I was a favorite of my father. I was the first daughter. Then I had 3 brothers. So, and I helped him with the surgery and everything. He thought I was amazing. So she wanted him to think that I'm not so amazing. So.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your brothers then.
Yes, my brothers' name are Gil, Ran, and Uri. Every 2 years, my mother had another baby, and then she had Uri, and she always told Uri that he was a mistake, which was a big mistake from her point of view. They all behaved very well. We had small flat. My father worked, and we had to all behave very well and very quiet. So
Were you close to them when you grew up?
I don't think I was amazing. I did look after them. I used to take them to Gan Meir during the holiday, and I got one Israeli pound for it for every morning that I looked after them. I studied English literature in the university. I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed the life there very, very much. And of course, I had a boyfriend there who was absolutely gorgeous, and which we were friendly. Jerry and him were friendly until many, many years after that. And he was from concentration camp. He was in concentration camp, actually. But at that time, nobody who was in concentration camp said a word about it. You could see the number. Nobody talked about it. Absolutely not one syllable. The whole, not just him, no one talked about it, So unless they talked within a family, but nobody mentioned it. It's very interesting, all those who came from the Holocaust. And then after, when I was 18, I was recruited to the army. I went straight to the intelligence because I was in university for 1 year, and I had a very boring job. And
Now, hold on, how come you were in university before the army?
Because I was the youngest in the class. I did my matriculation when I was 17. I got distinction in economics. And my economic teacher said, Daniella, you're going to university. I said, yes, why not? And so I was the youngest, of course. And then I went to the army, to the intelligence. I had a very boring job. And then there were competition for swimming. And as I was always competing and swimming, because I was in Hapoel, and we used to swim a lot, almost every day, and a lot in competition. So I went to the National Army competitions of swimming, and every morning they fetched me from Pinsker Street at that time, and with all these gorgeous men from the Tzanchanim who were great swimmers. So we were swimming for 1 month, morning and afternoon, for 1 month, and then we had the competition. So I was very, very lucky to be involved with the best swimmers in Israel. So we swam Mishesh Lichim, how do you call it? Rally, a rally, 100 meters, and luckily enough I got a gold medal. So when I came back to the army, to the intelligence, there was somebody called Milton Miner, who was a guitarist and an English Cockney, who recruited me to his little unit. Now his little unit was a very secret unit. It was a unit with 5 men from Arab countries, from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, etc., from 5 Arab countries, and they all listened to, it was top secret. I mean, I only talked about it 10 years ago. And they were all listening to all the conversation between, the armies. At that time was so of course there was people at the top of where we worked that had to find out because they changed the telephones all the time so that we wouldn't know. Well, of course, by the way, at Yom Kippur War, my little unit told Golda Meir that there's definitely going to be a war. Definitely, because they heard it. She didn't listen. And Yom Kippur was a very bad war, but if she would have listened, she would have saved a lot of people.
But that's why she resigned after.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite clear because they listened to the conversation, and because they each knew a dialect. The Syrian had different dialect, the Egyptian had different dialect, the Jordanian had different dialect. And so I was very lucky to work in this very small unit. And my boss, Miller, who was a great, he was a bit like Uri Geller. He could walk in the street and tell you what you did at the top. And I was very, very lucky to be, to work with him and to be under his influence, because I did things that I would not be able to do before. And I really enjoyed every minute of my work in the army. It was really, really lovely. And every 2 days I went back to Tel Aviv to my parents, So but that was the beginning of that. I started to know what I want to do in life, and I took 1 day off the army to work in one exhibition they didn't know I wasn't allowed to go to put in it. There was a big exhibition in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And then even my boss was angry with me, but I managed to not get any fine, whatever. And before I left the army, I went to the head of the camp. And I said, Ami, I need a little letter because I'm going to Jerusalem now. And I want to work in the tourist office there while I'm studying. So, of course, he wrote a little thing, please do it for me, to the head of... And I got a job, that wonderful job. So while I was studying in university, every morning I went to the tourist office in King's Malon Amlachim. And I loved that work there. I always wanted to work with tourists and to work in tourism. So I finished my studies 2 years later.
What did you study again?
English literature and geography. But I was mainly interested because I was interested to learn languages and to... yes, then I went to a short course of hostesses or air hostess and ground hostess, and I worked for 2-3 months in Lida Airport. At that time it was called Lida Airport, just in the tourist office, but it was a boring job. And then I was asked to work with mayors of towns from Italy. You know, the mayors of towns of Italy came for a big conference, and I was in...
So who was that? I don't know. Can you tell us who was Mia Sultan?
Yes, the mayors, of course I'll tell you. And so the mayor of Bologna liked me very much. He wanted to go out with me to Dizengoff, and I said no. So then all the Italian delegation of mayors wrote letters to me and thought that I was amazing, and they recommended me to the tourist office. And then when Pablo Casals came to Israel and it started the musical festival in Israel with Pablo Casals, Isaac Stern, Eugenie Tsumin, Leonard Rose, Rudolf Serkin, and they came to open the amphitheater of Caesarea. I was Casals' PR. And I got on very well with all of them, and I was very friendly with Sasha Schneider, one of the, one of Casals' family, they call it family. And then when Casals opened the amphitheater in Caesarea, I asked the tourist office if I can get a ticket, and they said, no tickets, only important people are coming. So I phoned Casals, he said, you're coming in my car. So I came in his car, we opened the amphitheater of Caesarea. So that was the reason that I went to London after that, because I didn't finish all my exams, most of my exams in English literature, and I had another exam or two, but I wouldn't miss working with Casals. And so I decided to go to England for 6 months. I went to Paris first, I had a great time in Paris, and then I went to England, and I worked first in the tourist office in London. And then I decided that I want to go in the Jewish agency because they worked only half a day on Friday. Because I said I'm going to be a short time in London, I want to see more exhibitions and things like that. And of course, my boss, Levi Gertner, organized Hebrew seminars in Tyringham. And lots of people like Isaac Smilansky, people came to lecture. And who came to that one of those seminars, Mr. Jerry Baron Cohen. And he looked a bit like Sasha Schneider, so I did look at him, and we became friendly. He took me out to the Everyman Theater, or Everyman Film Theater once, and he said, what's your name? Weiser. I said, I don't like the name, we have to change it. So within 6 months, we did get married, but we went back to Israel to get married in Israel. So everything sounded amazing.
So hold on, tell me about him then. Well, what did you think about him when you met him?
I thought he had a good sense of humor. I thought he was always late, was a bit meshuggah. And I liked him. So we decided to get married. I mean, he was already 30, he wasn't that young. I was 23. And we married in Israel in a very nice, simple wedding.